Mr. Speaker, I'm honored to rise today with my colleagues to lead the House of Representatives in reading President George Washington's farewell address. Having just celebrated his 294th birthday of our indispensable first president, this is a fitting tribute as we celebrate the 250th year of our nation's creation. The farewell address is a remarkable document. Published in the American Daily Advertiser on September 19, 1796, it was never delivered in person, but it was widely read and remains one of the most important documents in American history. President Washington completed his 2 terms as our indispensable first president. First in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen. Every step of the way, he viewed his actions through the lens of precedent it would set for the presidency and for future presidents. His dress, his decorum, his relationship with Congress, his decisions about his cabinet, and his approach to executive decision-making. In this address, you'll see clearly that he ended his extraordinary public career on a high note. The practice of reading the farewell address began in a joint session of the Congress on February 22, 1862, during the darkest days of the Civil War. The Senate revived the ceremonial reading in 1888, and each year since 1896, the Senate has observed George Washington's birthday in February by selecting a senator alternating parties to read the 7,641-word statement in their legislative session. This year, fittingly, in this year of A250, our semi-quincentennial, it was Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia. The House revived the ceremonial reading in 1889 and continued intermittently until 1933, after which it became an annual fixture until 1979. Today, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues and I are delighted to return this tradition to the House floor, accompanied by our handsome portrait of our first president by John Vanderlyn that has hung here in the House chamber since the 1830s. Mr. Washington's farewell address. Friends and citizens, the period for a new election of a citizen to administer the executive government of the United States being not far distant, and the time actually arrived when your thoughts must be employed in designating the person who is to be clothed with this important trust. It appears to me proper, especially as it may be conducive to a more distinct expression of the public voice, that I should now apprise you of the resolution that I have formed to decline being considered among the number of those out of whom a choice is to be made. I beg you at the same time to do me the justice to be assured that this resolution has not been taken without the strict regard to all the considerations appertaining to the relation which binds a dutiful citizen to his country, and that in withdrawing the tender of service, which my silence and my situation might imply, I'm influenced by no diminution of zeal for your future interest, no deficiency of grateful respect for your past kindness, but am supported by a full conviction that the step is now compatible with both. The acceptance of and continuance hitherto in the office to which your suffrages have twice called me have been a uniform sacrifice of inclination to the opinion of duty and to a deference to what appeared to be your desire. I've constantly hoped that it would have been much easier in my power, consistently with motives which I was not at liberty to disregard, to return to that retirement from which I had been reluctantly drawn. The strength of my inclination to do this, previous to the last election, had even led to the preparation of an address to declare it to you. But mature reflection on the then perplexed and critical posture of our affairs with foreign nations, and the unanimous advice of persons entitled to my confidence, impelled me to abandon the idea. I rejoice that the state of your concerns, external as well as internal, no longer renders the pursuit of inclination incompatible with the sentiment of duty or propriety, and I'm persuaded, whatever partiality may be retained for my service, that in the present circumstances of our country, you will not disapprove of my determination to retire. The impressions with which I first undertook the arduous trust were explained on the proper occasion. In the discharge of this trust, I will only say that I have, with good intentions, contributed towards the organization and administration of the government, the best exertions of which a very fallible judgment was capable. Not unconscious of the outset of the inferiority of my qualifications, experience in my own eyes, perhaps still more in the eyes of others, has strengthened the motives to diffidence of myself. And every day the increasing weight of the years admonishes me more and more that the shade of retirement is as necessary to me as it will be welcome. Satisfied that if any of the circumstances had given peculiar value to my services, they were temporary. And I have the consolation to believe that while choice and prudence invite me to quit the political scene, patriotism does not forbid it. Mr. Speaker, I call on the distinguished gentleman from Utah, Mike Kennedy, to continue our reading.